Hello. Am I live? I gotta check. Guess I am. Hi, Jill here from TSC Talks. I'm here to do a workshop for you on intuitive podcasting and the process that I went through uh, that was extremely transformative while building a podcast. And I'm just double checking to make sure I'm live. Oh, there I am. Okay, awesome. So yeah, here I am live. I'm just going to share this. Thank you everybody for coming. Just give me a few minutes to do a few administrative things. So yes, I'm Jill Woodworth and I am the creator, producer of the podcast TSC Talks, which has been quite an experience over the years, starting off interviewing my kids and progressing on to interviewing people in the TSC community, and then on to more autism related, and then more alternative medicine, and let's see, spirituality, psychedelic medicine, all these aspects of the podcast that have actually supported my journey and as well contributed to general knowledge about the anecdotal experience of living through what I was living through and have shared very openly. So I thank you all for joining me. This is the first time I've done something like this, so I may just ask for your patience on occasion. What I'd like to do is I have a slideshow that I've put together that I'm hoping that I can get shared with you. And I'm just going to make my screen a little bigger. Yes, I'm going to start this slideshow, but again, I want to thank you all for coming. What I'd like to do in this show is kind of go through some slides that walk you through the podcasting, how I just went into it, what I've gotten out of it, and what I think that it can do for you. I'm here today. I feel like this has been the most transformative process of my entire life, something I never expected that I would find any interest in, and that grew out of a deep, dark, desperate place where I really had to come to the point of discovering how much what I knew and my voice mattered after being, and I'll share this in detail in the slideshow, but after really being kind of reckless and going from a reckless state with a lot of addictions and just real stress that had been chronic and ongoing to a complete breakdown, and then rising up from that. And the podcast was kind of the chronicle of that process. And I know so many of you out there have had your own transformative processes. And I'm not here to say that this is a better way. It's just a way that I feel like also offers to the world this huge amount of insight that comes when you are interacting in the way that a podcast calls you to across all different types of media. I shared 10 podcasting tips. If you want to know some benefits of podcasting, more specifically, you can look in my live videos. Came on live for 10 days. So I want to get started. Just know how much this comes from the heart and is really about me. I just feel like so honored to be here and to share this this process with you. And I think I'd be just thrilled if anybody was interested. I know you'll be interested. If anybody was interested in learning going forward, because I'm offering at the end of this, I'm going to just tell you a little bit about this 6-week intensive podcasting course that I'm offering, and I'll share that when I get to it. So without further ado, I am going to start the slideshow, and hopefully I'll be on screen up in the corner. So I'm going to get going on that if I can find it. Oh, this happened before. Just bear with me for a second. Okay. All right, let me see. Make sure it's live on the screen. Okay. I'm going to try it one more time. Here we go. All right, so here we go with my Love Matters intuitive podcasting slideshow. Thanks so much for watching. I will be talking along, and some of these are just kind of the thoughts. I may not read the entire thing. I will pause on them and hopefully not go too fast. This will be shared again, and I will give anybody who's interested access to the full slideshow. So here we go. I just got to share everything on this and sharing. All right, here I am. Okay, so this is the kind of the first stream of consciousness thought that I was thinking as I was creating the slideshow, what went into the inspiration for the podcast, this song by the Moody Blues called Question. It's a sacred inspiration for me over the years. It was a song my father loved. And just how there's this, I feel like that you can come at music and poetry from your own perspective. And for me, this song has just been a consistent theme in the podcast. In fact, I used it in some promotional stuff. So the deeper meaning, the layers of desperation that drove the questions and the desire to get to the honest truth, always peeling back the layers that we all have is the way it's gone. There's so much content that's flowed through, connection and love that just poured through everybody that was on the podcast. It was really more of a blessing than any kind of work. And I'm hoping to inspire you, perhaps. I'm hoping to give you an assist, if you're open to it, to learn this process and apply it in your own life in whatever way, whether you create an actual podcast, whether you do something with your family with audio, whether you put more into video. I'm going to give you the theory and the practice that I've developed. This has been life-changing for me. So that's what I'm here to discuss. And I can't read the rest of my slide. So this is what it's called. Your Life Matters, Intuitive Podcasting. I'm just going to move this for a minute so I can actually read my own slides. Yeah, that's great, Jill. Yeah, move more fully into your soul's purpose, learn more about yourself, love yourself more, where you share your unique insight through the process of concepting, creating, and producing a podcast. And then I put the lyrics to the song Question here. And this song is always strumming in my head. I should have pulled up the actual song to share, but if you Google it, it's Question by the Moody Blues. You can listen to it and you'll get the gist of it. And I also created this little crowdfunding video pretty early on in the podcast. I don't think I'm going to share it now. If I have extra time, maybe I'll come back and share that. But when you get this, you can watch that. It was with probably, I kind of put together the first 50 or so guests that I had when I was deeply immersed in the TSC community, doing some advocacy work. So just an example of things that can grow out of podcasting. So I'm going to go, whoops, I don't want to play that. Okay, so a vision. Know that you matter. It's a vision for you, and we'll find a sense of empowerment and self-love through finding and expressing your voice. You will able to go forward feeling more fully aligned and connected with yourself and your soul's purpose and life in general. You'll also have documented in the process through the portal of podcasting, the whole process, and have a whole lot of fun. Here's some snapshots of materials that I developed pretty early on. This is what I call the Wall of Love, which is one of the lyrics from the Moody Blues song I just mentioned, Question. Why do we never get an answer when we're knocking at the door? Because the truth is hard to swallow. That's what the Wall of Love is for. Now, I know there's some other lyrics that say that's what the War of Love is for. And I'm just not going to talk about that anymore because, So anyways, and this is from our 100th. I just realized I might not be recording. So I'm going to just double check on that. Let's see, record to this computer. All right, so yeah, this 100 episodes, we got to 100 episodes and I invited all my guests to come on live, and these are some snapshots from it. This other one here is from our weekly updates that the team and I that were working on the podcast came up with to keep people interested. So just some ideas of what I've done and what can be done very simply with usually free or very inexpensive tools. So what I want you guys to get out of this, or get out of my workshop, you remember the 4-minute mile? I'm dating myself, but I grew up with this idea of a 4-minute mile, and Roger Bannister, I believe he was the first American to break the 4-minute mile, which was a huge accomplishment. Now people do it all the time, but when I was growing up, that whole idea, anybody that even got close was incredible. So anyways, after completing this 6-week workshop, if you decide to go for that, you're going to get a lot out of this webinar that I'm doing tonight, but you'll be able to stand in the fire, love yourself, find peace in chaos, know that you matter, and have all the answers within, but also know how to practice self-love, finding your inner voice, your sense of purpose, and sharing your lived experience and the transformation that occurs in the process. You'll be able to stand in your personal hurricane and know that you are enough. And there's a picture of me doing just that. So my introduction, which I've given a lot, but I'll just go through it. Welcome so much. I'm Jill, and I'm going to demonstrate to you how much you and your blessed life matter. Share with you how you can find empowerment, self-love, finding your voice through the portal of podcasting. So the first thing I want to mention is if you've ever felt what seemed like endless suffering and grief, loss of any internal stability, feeling like you're going crazy, what's going to happen to your children when you're gone, you're not alone. After I share some of what happened over the course of my life, you will be reassured, validated, and inspired to start to tap your own lived experience for clues. And it can be confusing. Many times the information overload keeps you from feeling like you want to listen at all. It's all okay. If you've been concerned in the past that you can't find a way to peace ever in the middle of your personal chaos, I want to put those fears to rest. You can do this. You have everything you need to navigate some of the most tumultuous waters of any here on this planet. So this is my little rant on the systems. Now, let me just qualify this by saying I am not against these systems. I just have been immersed in them for over 25 years, case managing my children and for personal issues. And I feel as if I need to speak on this. And so I also want to let you know that a lot of the reasons that if you're dealing with chronic illness or you're a parent, caregiver, someone that has some kind of special needs, chronic illness, or whatever way you're affected where life is just really challenging, it's probably not all you. So I'm just going to leave this here for a minute. All the systems you depend on are necessarily here to help you. A lot of times we believe they can save us at the time that we need them, and we end up being trapped in many ways. And I'm not saying not to be able to use them, but to understand that they're not always looking out for your best interests. In fact, I believe that it's an inverted system built with a fixed idea of who we are as humans that's really remained stagnant, while human beings are designed and built to evolve, grow, and change. So we're basing a lot of what we do in the present on variables that do not encompass the whole vision or capability of what the human is and can be. It's my feeling we're capable of much more, and we're not only human, but divine. So for the purpose of this workshop, getting back to business, what I'm saying again is you matter. And when you spend a lot of time giving to others or feeling as if you are a fish out of water, can't, won't, don't fit in for whatever reason, I'm here to tell you that it's by design also through self-exploration process that my type of coaching involves. You're going to find out more about why. And in the process, create this kick-ass audio and or audio-visual document. So know deeply, it's not you. No matter what you think has happened in your life, you're a beautiful gift to the world. And I'm here to help you open your gift and share it with the world. More about why it's not you. If you've ever thought the healthcare system, the government, the social services systems actually want you to fail, you're probably right. They don't benefit from you succeeding. They want to keep you band-aiding everything and in need. They do not want you stepping out of the programming and thinking that you know anything or can rely on your intuition to navigate better than what they have to offer. And this was a slide I made probably pretty early on about this very thing. So I know you guys have dreams. That's what I'm here for. I know you have dreams and visions, and you know shit. Oh yeah, I was going to name it. I had it named Your Shit Matters, but the algorithms did not like that. So it is Your Life Matters, which feels more right to me anyways. So, but you do know shit. And despite feeling trapped, oppressed, and overwhelmed, I know it's all in there, and I want to show you how to find it. Tap it, share it during this workshop. These are a few of these motivational quotes I pulled out of podcast transcripts or just stuff downloads that come through. So my goal for you, this new opportunity, is to show you how the process of podcasting can be therapeutic, creates a historical document, and spreads important information on relevant topics. So this course that I'm going to share with you offers multiple options for an end goal. And for those who are interested in creating a full-blown podcast, or those who want to create a private audio production for family members or personal use. There's so many ways to use this portal of podcasting to inspire personal growth, make deep connections, with people and learn more about your role in the world. What you have to say matters. What you have to share matters. I think I've said this a bunch of times, and I just want to keep repeating it because I know that for me, it really took me a long time to think that anything that I'd done in my life really mattered to the point where it was contributing to my growth and evolution. So a creative endeavor such as intuitive podcasting, a powerful avenue for connecting to yourselves, to others, and to love. Sounds corny, and there are many ways to gain from creative podcasting. Perhaps you're looking to find love for yourself or others, or you have this burning desire to share what you've learned about monster trucks or water wheels or some other hot topic in your head. You can take as much as you want from the coaching process, go as deep as you want, or stay superficial. It's all important. It all matters. And I can guarantee you one thing, no matter what, you're going to learn more about yourself through this process and maybe gain a newfound dimension within yourself you never knew you had. So I'm going to qualify myself quickly. I'm just a human, defined human, but I'm also these things. These are just the shackle or the programming tells us we have to put all this stuff out there. So here's a little bit of my background. As again, creator, producer, owner, TSC Talks, a podcast platform for those living with extreme challenges, offering resources, support, inspiration through podcasting, workshops, and other tools to assist you as you stand in the storm of your life with peace in your heart. So it's been top rated globally in different countries, charting as high as number 4 in China in alternative medicine. This is actually not right. As of today, we have over 140 episodes. So I went to college back in, a long time ago, graduated in 88 with a degree in exercise physiology. Thought I wanted to be immersed in the fitness industry, was a runner most of my life, still am. I did this Becker College Family Mental Health Care Worker Certificate Program. That's fairly recent. Some advocacy work locally with the special ed committee in our area. I did 6 months of addiction counselor program through AdCare, 2015, 2016. Unfortunately, had to drop out of that program due to the issues going on in my life at that point, with my challenges personally and with my children. Been a distance runner for a long time, have done well in some bigger races. Running has been a source of release, a source of connection, a real meditation for me. So adult foster care provider for my daughter, who now is in a group home, but I was able to tap some resources through the systems, actually, which is a good point, that it's not necessarily that the systems, yes, they're inverted, but the people working in them, I found the most amazing humans. Anyways, got a lot out of the process of being an adult foster care provider, case manager, caregiver for 3 children with the condition tuberous sclerosis complex, causes benign tumors to grow in all the vital organs of the body. So that's been quite the main job that I've had. Volunteered with the TS Alliance and led a team of runners as a coach to the Marine Corps Marathon in 2018 and finished first in my age group of 50 and up. So those are just a few little things. Picture gallery. Yes, this is just some stuff that has come up through the process of podcasting that I'm proud of. We got published locally, and actually that was when I ran the marathon, but that's still kind of part of the podcast. Local paper, some press releases. Thanks, Chris Nichols. On the cover of an article in Vanguard magazine with Tiffany Watkins, who was a podcast guest. She is a women in cannabis related magazine. Local to the Massachusetts area, Bay State Parent published an article. I actually was one of the top 900 women who should be recognized for their achievements in cannabis, which was an offshoot of the podcast as well. And then I added a couple pictures here. This is me back in, early 2000s with all 5 of my children. And yeah, I look a little frazzled. And so that's kind of where a lot of chaos started. But just love this picture. My cherubs there. And then this was a picture of me right before I crashed and burned. Had quite the party lifestyle for a while and used that as a method of coping. But I kept this picture over the years just to um, remember me, because that person there is still part of me, and I believe I had to go through that to be here now. So, and then running with my son, my oldest son, Woody, in the Marine Corps Marathon as part of Team TSC in 2018. Sorry for the watermarks. I couldn't find the regular picture. And that is it. Okay, so I'm going to get into my story here. This is where the juice is, and I'm doing this share, and hopefully people are listening because, yeah, I'm just going to check, double check. So hang on there, everybody. All right. Hopefully people are listening, and I'm going to get back to it. So let's see. Where was I? Okay. All right. So in 2012, it's really where my story took a big turn. I'm just going to go through this as quickly as I can. I was parent of four children, five children, four with my second husband. Had quite an interesting childhood, very privileged in lots of ways. My family moved a lot. There was a lot of instability there, but mostly I had a gifted, gilded childhood. I was born into amazing parents, really nothing to look back on and say, oh my God, that's what happened to you. But little cracks in this over the years, and just a very sensitive personality. Anyways, had a lot of ups and downs in life, but ended up in a relationship with my ex-husband, and we had all these kids, and three of whom have tuberous sclerosis. So the chronic stress of that over the years led me down some path into addiction. And at one point I really hit a bottom where I was using a lot of psych meds. I was put on a lot of psych meds, and I was using substances at the same time. And one particular day in 2012, June of 2012, something happened, and I had this like out of body experience where I was like not really in control of what I was saying and what I was doing, and I decided to like jump off my porch. Somebody was there behind me and caught me, and I ended up getting transported in the ambulance to the psych hospital, and it was considered, a psychotic break. I also had consumed some cannabis at the time, which I believe I was not familiar with, and set off a lot of this real, what I consider now to be an awakening. But it was the most terrifying experience. That was awesome too, because it really catapulted me into recovery, into taking responsibility for my actions, into being where I am now and starting the podcast. So a really scary experience. I have to attribute it to years of just not dealing, not saying things out loud, being, intimidated to communicate, and having to make a lot of very stressful choices between a rock and a hard place. If you understand, this type of emergency type of condition where people can have seizures at any moment and behaviors that are really extreme, you're kind of living with a lot of unknowns, and the need to escape and to have something of your own and to just feel okay getting through the day is profound. And I think I tried to live two lives and live above it. So anyways, I ended up getting divorced, getting involved in the AA and the recovery community. So single mom, moved to a much different lifestyle we had when we were living in this house. Kind of really pedaled back a lot. It was a growth experience for me. It was really hard for my children. But we did it. There were just overwhelming obstacles every day. After we moved out, trying to maintain my own mental and physical health, I withdrew. During this time, I started listening to podcasts, and as a release, I was still running. Despite having so many struggles, there were many bright spots. And I started just kind of tuning inward for the first time in a long time. And I believe everything's a process, and things are put in front of us for for our own greatest good. And I believe everything that happened that way, with the hearing these podcasts and really realizing people are freaking talking about stuff that I never heard about. And, I've always been curious, asking questions, is there another way to do this? Are we doing this the best way? And the internet gives you just an immense amount of tools for research. And that with listening to podcasts, I started realizing that maybe I needed to change some things medically. As I said, I was in recovery. I was working a part-time job. I had my kids and their needs and whatnot, but I still had just so much under there that I was knew was down there. And I'd learned, anyways, I decided to get off the pharma. And I really was waking up to the depths of the PTSD, CPTSD, the needs of medically fragile children, and my real inability to financially provide. So, ongoing intense crises. My daughter had some behaviors that were just extreme. My son almost burned the apartment down, and so these were things that were going on, and so I cultivated space, running, listening to podcasts. So I got the inspiration that maybe I should talk about this, talk about it with my kids. I felt like I had somewhat of a unique experience, having 3 children with this diagnosis. Not that I was special in any way, but I thought, well, if we talk out loud about it, maybe it'll help somebody else. It'll help us at least have a downspout for what we're going through. So I started talking to my kids. Just little casual interviews, and people at the TS Alliance, people caught on to that and they seemed to like it. I ended up getting involved in advocacy through the TS Alliance and marched on Capitol Hill to get some legislature passed to support the diagnosis in many different variables, and really got involved in the community, which I hadn't before. I hadn't really connected with people in the community, which I believe I felt very isolated and alone, at the same time as trying to pretend that everything was okay. So I think part of my passion behind sharing this with you and teaching you people out there, everybody, that a way to manage this kind of trauma and energy, whether it comes from similar circumstances as mine or whatever it is really to learn to speak what comes up inside you, and know that everything that you're feeling, you're thinking, you're experiencing, it really does matter. Don't keep that shit down there. So anyways, many obstacles along the way. My TSC is very complicated because of the nature of the condition and our medical system treating it organ by organ. I feel like I should mention that. You're really chasing down a lot of treatments with different specialists, as well as educational issues, as well as a lot of behavioral mental health issues. And I really truly believe that our TSC and people with chronic illness are here to teach us, because my children have been my biggest teachers and the most inspiration. So I believe that through this process of the divorce and all these awakenings and the intense challenges we were under, I started to listen to myself, and just bit by bit, piece by piece. So that is the kind of origin story. And then I want you to know, I do not think I'm special. You might not think that any of this that I'm talking about applies to you, and that's great. I'm sure you're really enjoying listening to me rant and rave about it. But I do know that many of you out there as parents have probably felt complete overwhelm, especially if you're caring for someone with special needs. You're really going from event to event, and many of your needs are shelved, and your mental and physical health takes a hit. And I can tell you that when I hit bottom, I had major physical health problems, stomach problems, almost diagnosed with Crohn's disease, Raynaud's syndrome. A lot of immune issues were cropping up. So I do believe that a lot of stress contributed to that, as well as some of my lifestyle choices. So really took it down. And, that really adds to the burden of guilt when you finally do decide to, or you're finally able to come into more of a recovery mindset. You still remember that, you contributed to your own demise in lots of ways. So I do believe there's a higher perspective. I think you do have to own your role. So anyways, that was me. And I believe anybody out there, no matter what you've done, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You're here now. And there's reasons why it happened. And there's just so much that you can learn through this process. So let me keep going. So have you ever felt as if you were all alone? If you, even though you had friends and family around, the depths of your frustration, your anger, your fear, your grief, from dealing with so many variables, back up against the wall, just all the stuff I just said. Um, you're heartbroken. You just end up having to accept the unacceptable in so many ways. So have things just not made sense in your world for a long time? That's who I'm here to talk to. And that's who I believe that I don't know if I could help you, but I can assist you in finding your own inner guru. So case studies, people that have had success using podcasting to change the world, or some of the successes that I've had here briefly. Joe Rogan was a huge inspiration to me. And I know he's very controversial, but you've got to admit, and I'm not going to go into why because this is lengthy, but y'all know who he is. And he's a podcaster and he got his words out there. And that's why I put him on there. I've listened to him. I don't necessarily agree with all his guests, but will say that I feel like he tries to get the truth out there in his understanding. And he really is, he's very authentic. And I appreciated that. I'd never heard that kind of podcast until when I heard that. And he gets lots of people from alternative health and all over, he'll talk to anybody. So I wanted to be that. That's what I wanted to do. So I did mention this before. Part of it, I got on the radar at the TS Alliance, and I also hosted a presentation for doctors at Mass General that was all outgrowing from podcasting and communicating. Interviewed some esteemed professionals, doctors, and TSC and other communities who were accessible because of the reputation of the podcast. My friend Lisa Larson, who I hope is watching, jumped in and helped me with this podcast, and I will never, ever be able to thank her enough for doing that. Our friendship became closer. We were challenged as human beings together to work. We also were partnered with Chris Nichols, that I met through the podcast, through another aspect of the podcast. And Lisa was a friend of mine before I started doing the podcast, and she helped me build it. And she was inspired, though, by the content, and ended up, leaving the podcast and going and exploring her teaching interests, and is working in a preschool locally, and feels as if she's learned some things from listening and editing the interviews that we did, where we were talking about these traumas and what the family goes through, and what the competence behind all of the issues that we often forget in our special needs population, because we're seeing through such a very regimented lens. Lisa took that learning and put it into this interest she had, and I just have never seen her happier. So there's 3 secrets I have here that you're going to get from learning this process. The first one is how to listen to yourself, be the observer, extracting loads of valuable information from your own lived experience. Number 2, how to reframe what you're going through and turn it into your biggest gift, and discover how much you matter. And no matter if you were the victim or perpetrator or anything in between in your own life, you're going to comb gold from the depths of your lived experience, so it resonates with the masses like mad. So I'm going to break these down. How to listen to yourself and be the observer, extracting loads of valuable information from your own lived experience. I cannot tell you how many times I had to not be the observer, not learn the lesson before I was finally able to do this. This did not come naturally. I think when you're dealing with a lot of crisis, you really end up getting easily pulled into it, where you're not able to think objectively. So I think I started to notice that when I was conducting interviews, I would start to get a lot of aha moments where I would realize that I'd experienced similar situations, and while the details were different, and be reminded of how others handled these situations, I started to just gain a little bit of bird's eye view and started to work with some of the concept that other parents were using successfully. Instead of flopping around complaining, acting out, and feeling hopeless, here was a way that I could use everything I was learning, going through, and consider it all valuable. So that natural progression, once set in motion, I take the time after interviews to integrate what I'd learned related to what was shared. And it always had relevant personal relevance for me. Some of this was done using running, plant medicine, all practices suited and complementary to the podcasting process. So just slow down and listen. Listen to you, listen to know, that little voice within prompting that you've experienced this too. You've felt this, saw this, heard this, and have lived this. Please remember me. So really focusing in on your inner knowing. So the aha moment when I up-leveled the podcast was, again, I went through this: divorce, shitty apartment, 4 kids, 3 with issues, awakening to the reality of their intense needs, and lack of my own inner scaffolding to manage. I used to sleep with binders, their IEP binders, next to my bed. I committed every second of my time. Well, not every second. No, that's not true, but a lot of seconds of my time to managing them, doing them as much as I could on every level. That was my job, and I started that podcast, and then ended up being invited to the TSC World Conference, where a lot of the community and the professionals that work with the community get together, and there's a lot of meetings and seminars given. It's really incredible. And I was invited there and went with my mom and met so many people that I'd heard about or, had known on social media. So at the World Conference, I had been playing with the idea of expanding the concept, but I felt like a stream from, above came through. I felt a sense of desperation that even though there was all this information and I was surrounded by all these people that were going through the same things, I still felt like disconnected. I still felt there was too many missing pieces, and I still felt alone. And so I got that inspiration. Why don't I start talking with the people that had this instead of just my kids? Start talking with the people in the community, the parents, the doctors, the people at the TS Alliance, anybody I could talk to get more information about these questions of why, despite all this information and help being available, I still couldn't make that connection. So that was a real aha moment. Results others have had with podcasting, with using their lived experience to create a portal for growth and evolution. I'd like to say Autism Live, created by moms of individuals with autism, an interactive web show providing support, resources, facts, information, entertainment, inspiration. This is more autism focused. I was a guest in, I believe, February of 2019. Sherry Tutkiss, amazing human being. She has an 3-time award-winning podcast called the Green Nurse Podcast. She broke her resistance to learning about cannabis after suffering a major health breakdown, and she wanted to share, educate, uplift, inspires others with her podcast. So she's got a lot of other things going on. A simple Google search will help you find her. Kimra Minuti is a more recent guest who has a podcast called Gaia Soars, about the current spiritual awakening and how to use it spiritually in your day-to-day life, what that looks like, and how to do shadow work. So you can read more about Kimra. Those are other people that have used and Joe Rogan, tapping from his lived experience to create one of the most awesome podcasts, or if you don't like it, one of the most controversial. So breaking the related beliefs you might have. Some of you are probably sitting there like, what the freak is she talking about? My lived experience isn't worth discussing or sharing. I haven't had that interesting a life. I thought I had nothing to say for a long time because I wasn't an expert and didn't have all the credo of many people to whom I was obliged to help. So I'm going to tell you that through the process of finding individuals to interview, creating questions for my first guest, I just wrote out what I wanted to know based on my experience, took a shot, and asked the guest, and had a riveting discussion that attracted praise. I had no idea it would be of such interest, just talking about the stuff going on in my own life with another in similar circumstances. So the next secret is how to reframe whatever you're going through and turn it into your biggest gift. So, and discover how much you mattered. So I started to look for clues in every interaction with my kids. What's here for me to learn? My son recently was having exceptional behavioral difficulties. Actually, he's had bouts of them. And I felt like there was really, I had tried everything, completely hopeless, and I wanted to give up. And again, I took it to the podcast, started really asking the questions about behaviors. What do you guys know about behaviors in kids with TSC? What's going on out there? How are you managing this? I interviewed parents that had similar challenges and learned some, again, educated myself. And step by step, I was able to help my son. And this is repeated, and I repeated the pattern, not necessarily doing a podcast on it, but that process of really reaching out and asking other people for insight, and as well as listening to my inner voice, which I am talking about. So, all right. So the aha moment that I had related to this was, I think, after starting the podcast, this is speaking to the fact that, you might think you don't have anything that's worthwhile, or you feel like you have to work. Obviously we do have to work and whatnot, but really just listening to your voice, listening to what is possible for you and what is not possible, and not trying to override that with what society has for us to do, no matter what. So I was doing the podcast, convinced myself I needed to find another job to support this hobby. I was getting pressure from, pressure, but people were like, what you doing? Why does this even matter? And this is just a podcast. So I put my resume together and went looking and got offered, various jobs here and there. Deeper part of me, I was really anxious about taking them. I knew intuitively I was walking on eggshells. The situation that we were living in, I feel like we're just, at any moment, things could blow up in certain areas, and just had this inner knowing that I needed to really just listen to that. So I believe that I was listening to my intuition, the ongoing needs that really no one else knew, even my partner at the time. So it wasn't time for me to take those jobs. It was one of the hardest decisions I had made. I was able to put other financial pieces in place. But I did feel divinely guided to continue the podcast. I remember sitting in my car and turning down the one offer that I thought it might be okay. And just something rose up in me, and I was able to walk through it and surviving in a positive way. So other people that have learned from the depths of their experience and exemplified this sort of advocacy, which I learned, integrated, and utilized, of using a rather horrific, stressful incident, turning it into a lesson and an example of how the podcasting process, the questions you need answered from your own life, reflected in your guest's lived experience, becomes a testament to the process. So people that took risks turned into their lives instead of away from their inner knowing. Mike Robinson, phenomenal cannabis guru, stepdad to a daughter with autism, been a recent many time podcast guest. He started a cannabis advocacy, extreme advocacy, based on his lived experience using cannabis to cure cancer and help his daughter. He founded Global Cannabinoid Research Center. Again, cancer survivor advocate, former civil rights lobbyist, and an attorney that represented countless disabled children. So really interesting guy, lots of answers there. Adriana Piltz, who is the founder of Nikki's Gardens of Hope, which is a unique group home model. And I'm not going to speak any more about it because I know they are developing and growing, but Nikki's Gardens of Hope, I saw an article and ended up reaching out and talking to Adriana, and kind of turning some of my frustration with the system at that point. Actually, that was her frustration with the system. She started a group home based on her lived experience, sustainable, supportive residential communities for adults with diverse intellectual and physical needs, give them integrated, independent lives within the community. So she took her deep lived experience coming from another country and coming to the US, and having a kid with special needs and really knowing that there was really nothing out there. So look her up. Gianna Champagne, another autism mom. And now Adriana has a son with TSC, so we bonded over that. And I ended up working for Nikki's Gardens of Hope for a period of time, helping them with their social media impact. And it was just a incredible experience, really passionate people. All grew out of just really, again, facing our dark side. So Gianna Champagne, cannabis nurse who founded Autism Safe Haven, dignified living options as an answer to the issues she was having with options for her daughter, with cannabis inclusion, optimal health, quality of life, and function as medicine for her daughter with autism. So again, Gianna is someone that got to the depths of her own, despair and really had to decide if she wanted to live or not live or die, but close to that. And I knew she had this daughter with autism and just really turned her life around and is now an amazing teacher in a university teaching college level courses on cannabinoid medicine. So all that to be said, it can be done. Again, breaking your related beliefs that you don't have anything interesting or valuable to offer. You don't have anything that matters. I know some of you probably out there are thinking, well, she's done all this. No. Really, this is all in the last several years, and I've done all the things wrong. I think I'm probably one of the people that is like a what do they call it? Oh, Nina, I need your help here. A student of life. Yes. Had to have the experiential experience to really get the lessons in many areas. So you too can do this. Everyone matters. No one is better than another. We're all the unique expressions of consciousness, I believe. So this is something I learned from completing over 140 podcasts and other events. Everyone has lived experience gained through their lives. And even if you feel like you've made choices that contributed to your own situation, it does not matter. It does not make you less than. It's only by looking at these situations from a deep soul perspective that you can see that those darker choices or situations you feel victimized by or which you were actively involved in creating all led you here to the point where you realize there was a reason beneath the pain that has always driven choices. By meeting yourself as who you are now with this awareness, with who you were then, with love and compassion for the struggling human, you will understand how important every experience on your journey was and how valuable your entire life has been, no matter the external trappings. So again, here we go with secret 3. No matter if you were a victim or perpetrator in your own life, comb gold from the depths of your lived experience so it resonates with the masses like mad. People are going to want to hear you, and you need to speak your authenticity. We need voices that are speaking their truth these days. There's so much that we can talk about. You don't have to be controversial. You can talk about something, like I said, my son and his passion for monster trucks and water wheels and history would make a great podcast. Local businesses, highlighting local businesses, all kinds of ways to use this. I created a personal podcast for my mother on one of her birthdays where I interviewed her family members on her life and their impressions of her. And it was so much fun. I talked to family members I never got to talk to and put it all together in episodes of a podcast for her birthday. And so that's just another idea. If you're not interested in some kind of public podcast, there's many ways to use this technique. And so another aha moment, I got to share this one about how coming out about my own plant medicine, something that I felt a lot of shame and guilt from when I first started using it, even though I knew intuitively I was helping myself. This was back in 2014, 2015. There was still a lot of stigma. I ended up getting a medical card. And then I brought it to the podcast, started interviewing people in the industry, ended up meeting, amazing people, like I mentioned, Mike Robinson, Sherry Tuckis. I eventually started a side business with my friend Lisa and Mike Robinson. And so anyways, when I started the podcast, I just started using cannabis, tapered off my psych meds, able to access parts of myself that I'd forgotten. It was like waking up in a new mind and body every day. But again, like I said, huge risk, huge stigma. But eventually, I felt completely validated by the interviews that I was doing with nurses, with doctors, with all kinds of cannabis industry people, from growers to TBI patients to, oh my goodness, so many people. And just most of the people that I connected with in the cannabis industry had some kind of real life crisis, to where they realized that the systems that were in place had not benefited them and their health issues, and ended up pretty desperate and willing to try it, and it being amazing. So another door opened that I was able to share that, and personally was having the same kind of experience. So yes, other people's results from sharing from the heart. So taking that risk and sharing. Nikki Lawley, one of my favorite people on the earth, cannabis advocate and educator. She had a traumatic brain injury that stole her joy, and cannabis returned it. Had tried everything possible to treat it, everything medically available, at a whim, ended up finding cannabis. Renee Heineman, she's was one of my very early interviews. She has a son with TSC who's nonverbal and has had several brain surgeries. She just is such a down to earth humorist. She just is so authentic, and came on the podcast, shared her perspective very early on, and just had a positive outlook, even though she's super honest. And so I really had appreciated her just being herself. Nina Patry, a more recent guest, someone I met after I kind of took a pause from the podcast and dove into spirituality. That this amazing woman who is another student of life. How Nina dug into her lived experience across a lifetime being a student of life to facilitate her own evolution, which led to her discovering paradox process, which is another wonderful tool I've talked about on the podcast, a way of managing your thoughts, a sharpening tool. I can't speak highly enough about it, especially I would say for any parent, anybody with chronic health issues. It's a great way to skip the therapist's couch and get the maximum benefit if you're not in plant medicine or other ways of really getting present and clear. And Brooke Alicia, oh my goodness, she's a mom in the TSC community that also has tuberous sclerosis, and she has used her lived experience as well as that of her daughter. She has some tough catch-22s. She's created a beauty service, I believe, for those living with disabilities. She's a podcast guest. She's a hairstylist. She's an advocate, and just has turned some of her darker hitting bottom moments into beautiful, beautiful advocacy, and just love for the community, love for everybody that her life touches. So those are some people that really have turned their dark experiences around, so that other people won't care about what I have to say. I've thought that many times. I don't have fancy degrees or accomplishments. Why would they want to listen to someone that doesn't have the PhD, doesn't have this MD, doesn't have the MA even? And what I've discovered is people really do gravitate towards authenticity and vulnerability. You share from your heart, you show up, you share from your heart. People don't care about the letters. So I realized this over the course of producing podcasts. Each one I put a little truth of my own out there. Never was the risk not worth it. And every time I'd be rewarded with individuals telling me how deeply they related to the content. I started to doubt myself less, realize that we have a lot of programming around us, and what is truly of value when assessing one's accomplishments. We have often lost sight of the forest for the trees, and the practice of podcasting can bring you back to this inner knowing. So if you decide that you've learned anything in this and you'd like to participate in my 6-week course and book a free consult with me, I would love it. I am going to screen share the link or announce it. I have a platform set up just specifically to get more information, schedule a call. You will get the 6-week podcasting course. It's starting in April. Each lesson building on the previous one. You will be able to stand in the middle of whatever situation you're in and find a space of inner peace and clarity. You'll feel more aligned with your deepest desires, your soul's purpose, and the direction of your life. You'll be able to tap into personal inspiration and create connections with other human beings, no matter who they are, including yourself. And you'll know how to utilize the inspiration to discover answers to your burning questions, which could change your life. You'll know how to frame a podcast and complete all the steps in between, solicit interviews and create or create audio content around your burning questions. Utilize various practices to help you prepare to either create a monologue or cultivate a heart-centered interview. And use applications to edit audio content, create an episode, upload to a platform, produce the artwork and marketing pieces to share the results on social media and podcasting platforms. So you will be able to do that at the end of this course. So how to repeat the process, utilizing the introspective tools and practices you learned through this course to continue to create your own podcast. And know your questions are always worth asking. And by following the flow of the steps learned, can continue to cultivate peace in your reality and a heart-centered awareness of your connection to yourself, the world, and the universe at large. How to sign up for a free consult. So these are the links, and I am going to find a way to share this right after the live. You can email me directly at pjlacy6@gmail.com, message me on Facebook, submit on my Linktree your email address, but this landing page right here, https //mailchi.mp/26EED3056AD4/intuitive podcasting. So that is the link. I'm just going to copy that and stop the share. And here I am. I don't even know if anybody else is watching, but that was the workshop. And I don't know, I'm going to check in on Facebook, see if anybody has any questions. Let's see. Yes, thank you so much for tuning in. Yeah, I'm looking down in the comments here. Okay. Well, that went how it went. This is like I said, my first time doing this and had a lot of information to share. I'm not sure if my face was on screen at all, but I appreciate you following along. I think I have a great course to offer. I have some I'm really excited about it. And again, this is like so much from my heart. Yeah, if I can engage anybody in this process and give you some of these tools, I think it's just one of the best things that's so needed right now. So much love to everybody out there. Thanks for tuning in. And again, I will share access to these slides, and I will post the information again on Facebook about where to find these platforms to sign up for a free consult with me and talk about what you want, what you would look to get out of this course, what your needs are, see if we're a good fit. I think it'd be fantastic and well worth your time. So much love to you all. I am going to say over and out. All right. Thanks, people. Love you lots.